Our Social Action Committee has been working on this, spearheaded by Willow Katz, who's coordinated this Readers Theater this evening. But I want to say that the whole congregation has supported this, and that a few years ago, a resolution was brought to the board of directors to support these efforts, and the board passed this resolution to be involved in this work. And we're one of the few congregations in California, there are a number of them, that is really committed to doing this work. I want to invite all of those who serve on the Social Action Committee to please stand just for a minute so that you can identify who they are, and if you're interested in getting involved in some of this justice work, you can talk to any of them. So please just stand up so people can identify those of you who are part of the Social Justice, Social Action Committee. And afterwards, if you're interested in engaging in some of this work, please speak with them. You can have your seats. Thank you. So Willow, I'm going to invite you to come on up to the bema, to the altar, and I'll bring the microphone up for you.
Temple Bethel is really delighted to welcome all of you here tonight. I'm very happy to see a number of faces. We're presenting tonight the Readers Theater, Hell is a Very Small Place, If the Shoe Fits, and other voices from solitary confinement. In tonight's version, we hear the voices of the California Prisoner Human Rights Movement from 2011 to 2016. Prisoners went on 3 nonviolent hunger strikes, the last by over 30,000 people, implemented the agreement to end hostilities across racial, ethnic, and geographic lines, and with their families and loved ones, ignited an international movement to end the torture of solitary confinement and prison human rights abuses. We also hear tonight from Torah, the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, and Talmud, ancient rabbinic writings. Thanks to our sources, the book, Hell is a Very Small Place, Voices from Solitary Confinement. There's a postcard about the book inside your programs. The Readers Theater, If the Shoe Fits, Voices from Solitary Confinement, and survivors of solitary and family members, including Marie Levin, with us tonight, and Dolores Canales, who spoke here last year. Acronyms are listed in the program. I hope everybody picked up a program. SHU is Security Housing Unit, one type of solitary confinement. CDCR is the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and CFASC, California Families Against Solitary Confinement. Survivor of solitary Bato Talamantes regrets he cannot be with us tonight. We warmly welcome members of CFASC, California Families Against Solitary Confinement, Marie Levin, Randy Levin, and Cynthia Fuentes, and dedicate tonight's performance to Cindy's brother, Robert Clemente Fuentes, Sr., 20 years in solitary, jailhouse lawyer and poet extraordinaire, who died due to CDCR medical malfeasance. Robert Fuentes, Sr., presente. Temple Bethel co-sponsors Together to End Solitary, actions on the 23rd of every month for the 23+ hours that people in solitary are alone in their cells. Join us in Santa Cruz at Pacific and Cooper every 23rd from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Please see your program for more information on our readers, videographer, resources, and ways to take action. Let us open our hearts to hear voices from solitary confinement and dedicate ourselves to end the torture.
I am Juan Mendez, United Nations expert on torture from November 2010 to 2016, treating all persons deprived of their liberty with humanity and with respect for their dignity is a fundamental and universally applicable rule. The UN Mandela Rights define solitary as the confinement of a person alone 22 to 24 hours a day without meaningful social contact with other human beings. Torture means any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person. The UN prohibits as torture over 15 days in solitary and any isolation of children, adolescents, persons with mental disability, and pregnant or breastfeeding women.
Genesis 1:26 through 27 tells us the Holy One created the human being in the image of the divine. Okay. Oops. I'm going to start over. Genesis 1:26 through 27 tells us the Holy One created the human being in the image of the divine. Therefore, to intentionally torture, humiliate, or degrade another human being is akin to degrading the divine.
Solitary confinement units have many names, including security housing units, or SHUs, segregation, restricted housing units, intensive management units, adjustment centers, administrative segregation, protective custody, the whole, the Bing, restricted to cell and room confinement. Each concrete and steel cell is smaller than a parking space. Up to 100,000 people are in solitary in U.S. prisons, plus 60,000 youth and untold numbers in jails and detention centers.
Genesis 2:18 declares, "It is not good that the human should be alone." In Babylonian Talmud, Ta'anit 23a, Honi the circle drawer prayed for death to end his loneliness. Rabbah said, either friendship or death.
In March 2015, Pelican Bay State Prison, near the California-Oregon border, held over 1,300 people in solitary, 500 for over 10 years, 78 for over 2 decades. 85 to 90% of the people were of color. Many were accused of gang association for being political and cultural leaders and jailhouse lawyers who learned law in prison to challenge abusive conditions.
My name is Dolores Canales. I spent 9 months in the SHU at the California Institute for Women in 1999. You don't experience human contact other than being handcuffed or escorted to places. My visits were non-contact, behind the glass. There would be at times that I would wake up at night because the cells were so small, and I would feel like I couldn't breathe.
My name is Jerry Elster. I spent years in and out of solitary in California. I felt myself literally losing my mind. I started hallucinating. I started hearing voices. I felt real alone, and the depression was just beginning to close in on me.
I'm Marie Levin. My older brother, Sitawa Natambu Jamaha, Ronnie Dewberry, has been held in the security housing unit at Pelican Bay State Prison since 1989. A circumstance that is truly cruel and unusual punishment. When I heard about the inhumane conditions in the shoe, I broke down, crying uncontrollably. Ronnie lives in a cramped, windowless cell for at least 22 and a half hours a day. He is let out of his cell only to exercise alone in a concrete enclosure and to shower 3 times weekly. He is allowed no telephone calls. His food is often cold and rotten. Ronnie has a severe vitamin D deficiency. He also suffers from high blood pressure and has at times been denied his medication. He says that being in the shoe is psychological torture. It is traumatizing knowing that a loved one is suffering. The drive is almost 8 hours, and travel and lodging are very expensive. After the long, costly trip, we are only permitted to visit for 1 to 2 hours through a piece of glass.
I am Sitawa Nantambu Jamaha. In Pelican Bay solitary confinement, I've suffered every torturous physical and psychological attack. We have wasted away here. While our families suffer psychological torture and many have already passed on. I was labeled a black gang member and put in SHU for reading a book by George Jackson. I was told off the record that I am in solitary for my political beliefs. This is not a unique story. Many are held in solitary indefinitely for not one offense for 10 to 40 plus years.
I'm Todd Ashker. I initiated a lawsuit against Governor Brown. In California, if you're put in the SHU for killing someone, you get sent there for a maximum of 3 to 5 years. If you're a validated gang member, you can count on spending the rest of your life in the SHU.
Correctional officers, not judges, put people in solitary without 14th Amendment due process. To get out, one must debrief, that is, accuse someone else of gang affiliation, snitch to end your torture and start theirs. This is recognized internationally as unreliable evidence.
Vayikra Leviticus 19:15, judge people b'tzedek, with righteousness.
My name is Janetta Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of TGI Justice, the Transgender, Gender Variant, Intersex Justice Project. Inside the prison system and being transgender, a lot of times you're automatically placed in security housing units, allegedly for your safety. The SHU further exacerbates any mental health issues that we might have.
My name is Davon Williams. I am a member of the Youth Justice Coalition. When I was 18, I was placed into solitary confinement for 2 weeks, 24 hours a day. I have epilepsy and I had a seizure. The officers thought I was playing and they put me into solitary. From the moment I was put into the hole, I felt isolated and depressed. After a few days in solitary confinement, I started to feel like I was going crazy. If a person did not already have mental health problems coming into solitary, spending enough time in there, you would lose your sanity. This was one of the worst experiences of my life.
We are the Pelican Bay Security Housing Unit Short Corridor Collective, housed in the Short Corridor part of the Pelican Bay SHU. Torture is unequivocally unacceptable under any circumstances. But what has been unfolding in the SHUs is a systematic use of torture by the state for years and decades. Torture of both minds and bodies of many thousands of prisoners to break them, to either have them die in long-term solitary confinement or be driven insane through the psychological torture of years and decades of isolation.
Dolores Canales again. In 2011, my son Johnny Martinez mailed me a letter announcing a California prison hunger strike. I sent it to the governor, California Department of Corrections, the media, and prisoners' rights organizations.
Marie Levin here. The 5 core demands are just human things that you and I would expect. End group punishment and administrative abuse, abolish the debriefing, policy and modify gang status criteria, comply with the U.S. Commission recommendations to end long-term solitary confinement, provide adequate and nutritious food, create and expand constructive programming.
I am Dolores Canales. When the prisoners first went on hunger strike in 2011, I hated the idea. I was already worried enough. I didn't want to think about them starving. When I told Johnny that, he looked at me and said, "Mom, what else are we supposed to do?" And I realized he was right. They had no other way to change things. Throughout history, sacrifice has always been the only thing for the people at the bottom of society to make change. But the longer it went on, the more difficult it was. Would all this suffering amount to anything? Would they let him die? I had to admit to myself that that could happen. California left people in the shoe for 20, 30, 40 years. I realized that they had no intentions of letting my son out and that we had to do something.
Sitawa Nantambu Jamaha here. California Department of Corrections and the Pelican Bay Shoe Warden know that our hunger strike is about human rights and the abuse and physical and psychological torture of prisoners being held in solitary confinement indefinitely, i.e., civil death. Our Pelican Bay human rights movement is a struggle to be treated like decent human beings.
I am a prisoner representative. In our first and second hunger strike actions in 2011, 6,500 and then 12,000 prisoners participated. We then succeeded gaining worldwide attention and support.
I am Dolores Canales. We families realized we needed to form a group and to keep organizing. So we started California Families Against Solitary Confinement, CFASC. Now we drive up together, a busload of us, to visit our husbands, boyfriends, sons, grandfathers. Some people haven't been as able to afford the trip for years. Sometimes they're too sick or scared to make the trip alone. One mom hadn't seen her son for a decade before she found CFASC. So we do it together. For these men, a visit from their families can totally turn their lives around. We take a lawyer to do workshops en route.
August 12th, 2012. Greetings from the entire Pelican Bay State Prison SHU Short Corridor Hunger Strike representatives. We are hereby presenting this mutual agreement on behalf of all racial groups here in the PBSP SHU Corridor. If we really want to bring about substantive, meaningful changes to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation System. Now is the time for us to collectively seize this moment in time and put an end to more than 20 through 30 years of hostilities between our racial groups.
Therefore, beginning on October 10th, 2012, all hostilities between our racial groups in SHU, ADSEC, general population, and county jails will officially cease. Exhaust all diplomatic means to settle disputes. Do not allow personal, individual issues to escalate into racial group issues.
Forcing CDCR to return to a rehabilitative type system of meaningful programs and privileges via peaceful protest. We can no longer play into old divide and conquer tactics. We can no longer allow CDCR to use us against each other for their benefit. Because the reality is that collectively, we are an empowered, mighty force that can positively change this entire corrupt system into a system that actually benefits prisoners and thereby the public as a whole. Presented by the Pelican Bay State Prison SHU Short Corridor Collective, Todd Ashker, Arturo Castellanos, Sitawa Nantambo Jamaha Dewberry, Antonio Guillen, and the representatives' body of all racial, ethnic, and geographic groups.
On July 8th, 2013, we started our third hunger strike, in which 30,000 California prisoners and hundreds nationwide participated, resulting in greater worldwide exposure, support, and condemnation of the CDCR. Over 100 prisoners stayed on hunger strike for 60 days.
I am Marie Levin. We will be with the prisoners in the courts, in the legislature, and out in the community. We will use every venue available to us until the torture is ended.
In September 2015, we prisoner plaintiffs settled our class action suit, Ashker versus the Governor of California. This settlement represents a monumental victory for prisoners and an important step toward our goal of ending solitary confinement in California and across the country. California's agreement to abandon indeterminate SHU confinement based on gang affiliation demonstrates the power of unity and collective action. This victory was achieved by the efforts of people in prison, their families and loved ones, lawyers, and outside supporters.
Our movement rests on a foundation of unity, our agreement to end hostilities. It is our hope that this groundbreaking agreement to end the violence between the various ethnic groups in California prisons will inspire not only state prisoners, but also jail detainees, county prisoners, and our communities on the street to oppose ethnic and racial violence.
From this foundation, the prisoners' human rights movement is awakening the conscience of the nation to recognize that we are fellow human beings. As the recent statements of President Obama and of Justice Kennedy illustrate, the nation is turning against solitary confinement.
Since the hunger strike, 2,400 people have been released from solitary units to prison general population. Isaiah 42, 6-7. I, Adonai, have called you in righteousness and have taken hold of your hand and kept you. to bring out prisoners from confinement, from their prisons, those who sit in darkness.
I am Marie. High CDCR officials privately admitted to me that they know Sitawa is in a political group, not a gang. My brother was released from SHU, and in early November 2015, we had our first contact visit. Without the plexiglass between us, we were able to touch for the first time in 31 years. Here is a photograph from our first contact visit. Many of the men who have been released from the SHU are peacemakers, and they are helping to bring about the decrease in violence in the prison general population. High CDC officials have told my brother that the agreement to end hostilities has greatly decreased violence in California prisons.
Loving kindness, Psalm 85:11. Loving kindness and truth will meet. Righteousness and peace will kiss.
Solitary confinement is a world of its own, where for most, refuge can only be found through sleep. But now, people in solitary units cannot even sleep. I'm Sandy Nieves in Central California Women's Facility Condemned Unit Death Row. On May 18, 2014, CCWF instituted a check procedure intended to decrease suicides. A guard checks the status of each prisoner every half hour. The noise from the main doors opening and closing every half hour, foot stomping, banging the pipes on the doors, beeping, and the guards shining flashlights into prisoners' faces as we are trying to sleep, turn so-called welfare checks into sleep deprivation. Prolonged sleep deprivation is recognized as a form of torture and can lead to suicidal thinking and or tendencies.
"20 of us on CCWF death row filed a complaint in June 2014. The U.S. federal courts have said sleep is critical to human existence, and conditions which prevent sleep have been held to violate the Eighth Amendment. Sleep deprivation causes high blood pressure, seizures, uncontrolled blood sugar levels, stress, depression, etc. Flashing lights, banging on doors, and lack of sleep have caused some of us to go into seizures. Some of us have had to raise or change medications just to cope because of the monitoring, banging, beeping, flashlights. We're surprised nobody's had a heart attack yet. To know that we have to exist and live under these conditions for the rest of our lives is overwhelming.
This is torture. We are being emotionally, mentally, and physically battered by the security checks throughout the night.
I'm in Pelican Bay SHU, where these security welfare checks started August 2nd, 2015. The call to end hostilities is something I experience here with my fellow neighbors from different areas of California each day. The prisoners' collective spirit is alive. I believe this is something that the administration feels and fears. I think this is the reason they have implemented the security welfare checks. Coincidentally, the time that the settlement was done on the Ashker case, they're killing us with these welfare checks. We really are suffering right now, and I can assure you that this is worse than the hunger strikes.
I am John Martinez. The security welfare check procedure is intentionally inflicting cruel and unusual punishment. There is a reasonable probability that life-threatening injuries and/or even death is inevitable, as medical symptoms are only worsening, but not being treated.
Dolores again. I visited my son Johnny in the Pelican Bay SHU, and he's going crazy from not being able to sleep. I've never seen him like this. He couldn't think, and he fell asleep while I was talking to him from across the glass partition. I co-signed a complaint to the United Nations. Dear Mr. Mendez, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment, we request that you investigate this matter and call upon appropriate United States authorities to take all necessary steps to cease cruel and inhuman prison practices that interfere with these prisoners' human rights to sleep.
My name is Davon Williams. The cruel punishment of solitary confinement must be eliminated. It would be much better to spend time in effective programs that focus on helping people to grow and change than on investing in torture and isolation.
Babylonian Talmud, Brachot 10a. There were thieves in Rabbi Meir's neighborhood who caused him trouble. So Rabbi Meir prayed that they would die. His wife, Beroria, said to him, "What are you thinking?" Psalm 104:35 says, "May transgressions cease." Pray that they do teshuvah, repentance. He prayed for them, and they did teshuvah.
I am Davon Williams. Those most impacted by solitary confinement and our families must be recognized as experts on this issue. Isolation erased our humanity, but we're fighting back so that no one can erase our memories. Stop torturing our future.
We prisoner plaintiffs settled our class action lawsuit and ended indeterminate solitary SHU sentences in California. We celebrate this victory, while at the same time we recognize that achieving our goal of fundamentally transforming the criminal justice system and stopping the practice of warehousing people in prison will be a protracted struggle. We are fully committed to that effort and invite you to join us. Open our hearts and shut the shoes. Open our hearts and shut the shoes. Open our hearts and shut the shoes.
Thank you all. I'm not sure if I remember a time in this synagogue where we have done popular theater. Popular theater is a way for us to transmit the message from people who are experiencing a condition or a situation that we want to change. And I am pretty overwhelmed that we have done this in this synagogue. So I want to thank all of our readers, both Temple members and our guests, who rehearsed and prepared and delivered their messages with such conviction. So thank you to all of you. So as chair of this very exciting Social Action Committee, I also want to invite those of you who might be interested in joining us to meet with us, you can come let me know how to get a hold of you, and I'm happy to add you to our list. We are a thoughtful and action-oriented group who follow our passions in order to make change and really realize the true value of social justice and tikkun olam, which we all hold so dear. So thanks to all of you who participate with us, and an invitation to those of you who might. We'd like to take a few minutes and do question and answers or hear comments from you. If you have questions for anybody on in the Readers Theater or in the congregation, I have a microphone that I'm going to ask Gail Levine to pass around and see if there's anybody in the congregation who has a question. I saw a hand over there in the corner, Gail.
Thank you. Just a couple of seconds with you.
Lydia, could you talk louder, please?
Yes. Okay. How's that? Thank you. On my way here, no, it was a little earlier. It was at 6 o'clock this evening on the KPFA Evening News, which comes in at 6 p.m. every day from Berkeley to Santa Cruz. The news that Chelsea Manning attempted to end her life again in the shoe, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the term, where she's imprisoned solitary. She, as you must know, provided to the people of the United States information on what our government was doing that was illegal, and illegal for, apparently, for her to declare to the country. So she's in the U.S. disciplinary barracks, which I coincidentally lived near for 4 years in my childhood. It's a very, very seriously and sad situation that she's in, but she has once again, a second time, attempted to kill herself today.
Don't be shy.
Yes, I would like to invite everybody here into the next room. What we do on the 23rd has been demonstrated time after time of going down to where the public thoroughfares downtown are, and we take what we call storyboards with us that really demonstrate what solitary confinement cells look like, the words of people that have been in them, the actual agreements to end hostilities. Those are in the rooms back here, and people in the social hall. And people generally go by without wanting to look, but we go there month after month after month, and pretty soon, same people come by, they start looking, they start asking questions. We never approach people with the information. We want them to come to us. So please, if you have time this evening, please join us in the social hall. I think there was a question.
It's more of a statement because I don't really have a question about this. So my name is Drew Glover. Hello, everybody. First, I want to say thank you for paying attention and having this at your synagogue, because this is fantastic and it's really important stuff for everyone to be aware of. Willow is a champion of this. She's been working in Santa Cruz locally here, trying to raise awareness and get people involved and engaged. So, like was mentioned, 23rd of every month, even if you can only come down and hang out, we would love for you to come and be a part of the movement, because it's important for us to be there physically to send a message to the rest of the community that we're conscious and aware about this. It's about compassion, it's about community, and it's really about us all taking a little bit of time out of our day every 23rd of the month just to go down and support the people that have to spend 23 hours in solitary confinement. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to all of the people. We're really honored to have the individuals, the Levins, and Cynthia here with us to share in it. And thank you again, Willow, for this wonderful presentation.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight just to learn about what's happening in the prisons. And one thing that you can do is call the governor's office and let them know that you're outraged about the conditions that they are still yet doing in solitary confinement. The sleep deprivation is just torture. It's torture. None of us can stay awake that long and be sane and be whole. We just can't do it. It's not, God didn't design us like that. And I stood up to say that the torture is not over, so we have to continue our fight making, like he said, Willow is out there every 23rd of the month, just being visible. And you, in your places where you go work or school or whatever it may be in your families, make people aware of it. The other thing is the ballot. I believe it's everywhere. It's a measure, it's 57, and that is to, okay, all right, great. Well, I'll leave that alone then. Okay, thank you. And I don't know if it's here too, but in Oakland, it's fair, affordable housing. That's A1 in Oakland. I don't know what it is here. It's not here.
But
Okay.
we do need affordable housing. That is for sure.
So we have one more short little piece of information to share with you from Merle Lustig about Prop 57. So.
This will be very short. My name is Merle Lustig. I'm a member of the Social Action Committee at Temple Bethel, and I just want to talk a little bit about Prop 57, which is a ballot initiative that you have 5 days to vote on, and I'm asking for your support. Prop 57 is an initiative that focuses, a huge part of it focuses on kids who, as young as 14 years of age, often commit heinous crimes, and it's currently up to the district attorneys in each of the counties to determine whether to prosecute children as adults. We want to change that. We want a juvenile court judge to make that determination after looking at evidence. So we don't want a district attorney to make that decision just based on the crime. We want a judge to make that decision based on evidence, whether the kid was abused as a child, early childhood experiences, whether they're rehabable. That's one of the big parts of it. So the other parts are that it would allow individuals who have completed their primary sentence, who are in an adult prison, to be eligible and considered for parole after they complete their primary sentence. This means that people who have been convicted of a nonviolent offense like selling drugs, if they belong to a gang, they get 5 years. If they belong to a gang, they get another 5 years. If this is their second offense, they get another 5 years. So they start out with a 5-year sentence, they end up with a 15-year sentence. It's not fair. It's not okay. The other part of this proposition would allow for good time credits for people who are in prison who seek rehab services, seek educational services. It's an important initiative because it's about restorative justice. It's not about punishment. We as a congregation belong with other Reform congregations throughout the state of California to an organization called Reform California. And in all of the synagogues throughout the state of California, our efforts to get Prop 57 passed are strong, and we back each other up, and I personally, along with my group of activist colleagues, encourage you to vote yes on Prop 57. Also, I want to let you know that we have a Jewish values voter card guide, whatever you want to call it, out. It's in the table in the social hall and on the table as you go out that talks about all of the propositions from a Jewish point of view. And I encourage you to go to Ben the Ark. Ben the Ark has a voter guide. This is Ben the Ark's voter guide. But if you want detail, to go to Ben the Ark on the web and look up each of the initiatives. They've done a very thorough analysis that takes into consideration our values. Thank you very much.
And as you go into the social hall, please check out the literature on the table on the left going in, sign letters to end the sleep deprivation torture prisoners, sign up to join the Social Action Committee, and other ways to support prisoners in solitary confinement. Please join us in the social hall.